Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani back with Rudy's Common Sense. Today we're going to begin an analysis of a relationship that probably, as far as foreign policy goes, is the single most important relationship the United States has. It's the only relationship that really threatens our position in the world and does so directly. And that's, of course, China. And we'll begin with a background so that we set in motion quickly where we are right now. We'll have future episodes on China. In fact, we intend to spend a good deal of time on China this year because the direction in which we go on China is going to tell a lot about where America will be 20, maybe even 10 years from now. And certainly will tell a lot about our economy this year. And there are many, many points that have to be dealt with and either continued or reversed. To the extent that happens, we'll have a good sense of how we're doing in our, what is unfortunately, competition with China, not just business, but military and in every other way. We all kind of think back to the Nixon-Kissinger going to China and opening China. Nixon goes to China is an expression of somebody doing something opposite their political philosophy. Nixon had always been a very, very strong anti-communist, and therefore he had the credibility to be the one that could go to China. If some more liberal or left-wing politician had done it, it probably would have been a very, very difficult thing for him to get away with. But Nixon did do that. And over a course of several years, and then continued quite effectively by Carter and then Reagan, the relationship seemed to be developing into a, if not a good one, a useful one. It became a deep relationship. The governments got to know each other. The businesses got to know each other. People got to know each other better, and it was a very useful tool, very useful leverage, very useful dynamic in ending the Cold War because it created a leverage against Russia because of the ancient animosity and border disputes and everything else between China and Russia, and a sort of inherent distrust between the two countries. And it was played really well by Nixon, Carter, Reagan, maybe up to Bush 41. And although it's not the main reason we prevailed in the Cold War, I'd say that had more to do with the actions taken by President Reagan, by what happened in Poland, by Thatcher and Pope John, and even Gorbachev. It certainly played a role, maybe somewhere. It certainly helped. And once the Cold War was over, it seemed like the relationship between the United States and China could be one of never complete friendship, because such a difference in the type of government we have and the values that we hold here, but that it could be an effective, practical relationship with always some massive disagreements about human rights and civil rights. And on the American side, our always optimistic viewpoint that someday China become a democracy. I mean, how could it remain a dictatorship forever with half the population starving and half the population wealthy? That's a bit of an oversimplification, but pretty close to how it works out in day-to-day relationships. And that eventually those people held in bondage who were being brought into the middle class would demand a right to vote, a right of free speech. And we went along that way. In the 50 years, almost 50 years since the opening. Remember, next year will be, I believe, the 50th anniversary of Nixon goes to China. So it's a long relationship. And maybe that the thing that really created a way in which we could look at China and kind of be in denial about what they were really all about internally was when the Clinton administration deliberately decoupled human rights, and the rest of the relationship with China, the political, the business, the economic, the trade, so that, yes, we would concentrate on human rights, but not the way Carter did, for example, and to some extent Reagan and Bush. We would still do a review of human rights. We'd make note of the things that we thought were doing wrong, but it would never involve any sanctions or very, very strong action taken anywhere. It would essentially be ignored while we went ahead and forged very close and very lucrative business relationship without thinking a great deal about who we were making our partner. You know, it's like you're doing business with what looks to be a very legitimate business, and they seem like very nice people, but you know they're actually run by the mafia. But you ignore the fact that they're run by the mafia, and you have a very pleasant relationship with them until something goes wrong, and then they come in and break your kneecaps. Might be a fair analogy. We lost sight of the fact that there was this reality to China. There was also the notion back in the 90s, I'd say, maybe a little earlier, it goes a little later, and books about the peaceful rise of China. There was the notion, which is either true or presented as part of Chinese propaganda, which is enormously effective, by the way, that there were two types of people in China, two schools of thought in the Chinese Communist Party. One were the militants, the ones who wanted a strong army, a strong navy, and they wanted to come and take over the United States' position as the leading country in the world. The other was the people who were content with the peaceful rise of China. They even called it that China would become a true economic competitor to the United States because they claimed that China had no territorial ambitions, which, of course, if you take just a slight look at history, isn't true. China's always had territorial ambitions. In fact, it's been the reason for most of its wars. But in any event, that peaceful rise scenario, you know, two Chinas, like we used to call ourselves, the doves and the hawks, the peaceful ones, the warlike ones, and our eternal optimists telling us that if we did business with them, the more we did business with them, the more we exposed ourselves to them, the more the doves would rise and the hawks would recede. But we stopped looking, and we stopped looking carefully. And although Clinton's decoupling had something to do with it, there are two other things that really were much more important. And one was the effective use of the China happy face, and then what was behind that happy face, which was one of the most totalitarian governments in the world, one of the most amoral and immoral, one which was maniacally dedicated to communism and the eventual success of communism, and maybe even more maniacally obsessed with how China is the superior nation and therefore should be controlling the world. It's all behind the Chinese happy face. And behind that happy face, they forged not just close relationships with our government, but they forged very, very close relationships with our businesses, making those relationships enormously lucrative for American businesses, so that the Chinese market became the desirable market, the one which you would maybe sell your soul to have the Chinese market. Maybe we have a Faustian bargain made here by many American corporations. I mean, I've sat with American businessmen in an era in which this was a lot more confusing, and they would tell me they do a lot more business in China than in the United States. They could give up their business in the United States, given the profitability of the business in China. Now, how much does that affect their altruism, their patriotism, some none, some a little bit, some it's all gone, right? I think this would be a useful time to take a short break, and we will be right back. You never thought COVID could cost you your home, right? It just might, because cybercrime is up 75%. And by far, the most serious cybercrime to worry about is home title theft. That's right. Cyber criminals, foreign and domestic, are now after our homes, and it's easier than you think. The title documents to our homes are online now. The thief finds your home's title and forges your signature on a quitclaim deed, stating you sold your home to him. Then he takes out loans on your home and he leaves you in debt. You won't know until late payment or eviction notices arrive. Insurance doesn't cover you, and neither do common identity theft programs. That's why I protect my home with Home Title Lock. The instant Home Title Lock detects someone tampering with my home's title, they help shut it down. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. Then use code RUDY to receive 30 free days of protection. That's code RUDY at HometitleLock.com. HometitleLock.com. Let's continue with our analysis of China. So the Chinese happy face worked for a long time. I mean, this notion that we were helping to bring along the forces of democracy in China, and then along comes Li Jinping, and from the very beginning, Li Jinping displayed an attitude much more nationalistic, much more aggressive. Seemed to lean much more toward the rise of China, not necessarily with the word peaceful modifying it. Some of our really best China experts, and I would have to view them as the ones we should rely on now, way back in the beginning of the 21st century, wrote books noting this and warning us about it. But even during the Bush administration, and certainly during the Obama administration, no one really paid much attention to that. The Obama administration, with Joe Biden and John Kerry leading the charge, would have to be considered really the one that was the major cave-in to China on just about every issue, whether it's high tariffs for them, no tariffs for us, loss of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of American jobs like that. Nothing done about their expansion into the South China Sea. Nothing done about their military expansion, which clearly, pretty soon became obvious that it was in order to challenge us militarily. But that was denied, ignored, and way beyond the point at which we should have recognized it. The Obama administration, and you could say the most generous thing you could say about it, was in denial. And at this point, there was no justification for the denial. The handwriting was on the wall. And then something happened where the handwriting was not only on the wall, was put right in our face. Right, it was in 2017. It was the Party Congress, and Li Jinping stood up and made it clear. In no uncertain terms, he made it clear that by 2049, China would realize its full blossoming, and it would be the leading economy and the leading power in the world. Of course, the only other power was the United States. So what he's saying very simply is, my goal and why I'm doing these things, why we're doing business all over the world, why we're increasing our military, why we're moving into those islands, why we're challenging you in various parts of the world and creating problems for you in Iran and every place else we can, is because our goal is to supplant you. We believe it is our destiny as Chinese to rule the world, or to be the major power in the world. Now, is that just a, well, so we are or they are situation? Or can you see a major difference between the two? Because if you can't, I'm not sure you really understand or love America. What a difference, huh? I mean, in one case, you have the leading country in the world, being a country that's dedicated to democracy, dedicated to freedom, fought wars in other countries, and left thousands and thousands of young men, sometimes women, behind to save other places and give them freedom. took nothing for it. Basically, has been subsidizing the world for 30, 40, 50 years. It's the country that most people flood to and want to come to for fulfillment. Don't see people flooding into China, do you? See a lot of people trying to leave China. What a difference if a democracy, republic, with a Bill of Rights, a history of mistakes, but mistakes that it always seeks to try to fix, sometimes not fast enough, sometimes not effectively enough, but there's always that built in from the very beginning desire to reach perfection or close to it, and basically generous outlook on the rest of the world, wants the rest of the world to be peaceful, and maybe unrealistically hopes that the rest of the world can have what we have. How about replacing that with a regime that is run by a communist party apparatus that is a country of 1.4, 1.5 billion ruled by 90 million people who are oligarchs? The Chinese communists, I mean, communism is a strange description. The people at the top of the party are as rich as the people as the oligarchs in Russia, and maybe even more corrupt. So when you think of the Chinese Communist Party, that's who we're talking about with China. The rest don't matter. They're told what to do. They're put in prison in the millions. They're killed. They're killed. They were killed for a while if they had the girl babies were killed. Say it still happens in China. Abortions of female babies happen all over the provinces of China. They just don't like females very much. That's really an economic issue. Everything's an economic issue. You have them with their amoral, immoral, homicidal attributes ruling the world. I mean, that's a world you don't want to live in. So this is not a 6 of one and a half dozen of the other thing. And please, how many times have we made this mistake? Hitler told us what he was going to do. Stalin told us what he was going to do. Bin Laden told us what he was going to do. And we ignored it. We ignored it, and we got the Second World War. We ignored it, and we got the Cold War. Korea, Vietnam. We ignored bin Laden. We got the worst domestic attack in the history of this country by a foreign source. It's going to be the 20th anniversary of that this year. Is it now about time that we take these people seriously? That we say, if he said it, isn't a safer thing for us to do to believe that he meant it, and that he does intend to make China the ultimate power? And if we need any support for that, why don't we look at what he's doing? Isn't that the most effective explanation of why he kept trying to move people out of the South China Sea? Isn't that the most effective explanation of why he's doubling and tripling in the Navy, the Air Force, the Army? Isn't that the best explanation of why he's causing trouble all over the world? Why Li Jinping finds a reason why they should make things very difficult with Iran or Venezuela or any place else where the U.S. seems to have problems, or make statements about domestic issues in the United States, or even supports presidential candidates, like supporting Joe Biden in the last election. Isn't it because he really means what he said? He made it clear that the goal of the Chinese government is to supplant us by 2049. He gave the exact date that they were going to do it. And I would say that one of the really great contributions of the Trump administration was to be able to recognize that. This would be a good opportunity for a short break. My friends, if you want to help preserve America right now, while you still can, join AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. the fastest growing conservative group in America, especially for those age 50 and up. Joining AMAC gives you access to money-saving benefits, cutting-edge news, and a great bi-monthly magazine. More importantly, AMAC fights for you. A socialist storm is brewing. Our constitutional republic has rarely faced the perils we do today. Edmund Burke said it best. All it takes for evil to prevail is for good people to do nothing. If you care about our future like I do, then join AMAC today. Over 2 million conservatives like you and me have already joined AMAC. Stand with us by joining right now. Just go to amac.us/Rudy. That's amac.us/Rudy. The benefits of AMAC membership are great, but the cause is even greater. Join today at amac.us/Rudy. Welcome back. One of the Trump administration's great accomplishments in foreign policy, in addition to all the peace treaties that it negotiated in the Middle East and the way in which it brought cohesion to an alliance in the Middle East and other places, was the recognition, finally, the recognition that China means what it says, and that China had to be dealt with not in this dual way as a friend, and we ignore whatever they're doing that's detrimental to the United States because we believe it's finally going to go away. But instead, we realize that what they're doing and what their leader is saying is actually the policy of the country. Seems like an almost obvious conclusion, but sometimes the obvious conclusions, like Hitler really wanted to control the world and Stalin really wanted to control all of Eastern Europe and anything else he could control, and bin Laden really wanted to attack us, we couldn't accept those either, remember? So accepting it was a critical thing. And it changed our whole approach to China. All of a sudden, we negotiated tariffs differently. We used sanctions differently. We called them out differently. When they were responsible, which they were, for the spread of what I call CCP virus, Chinese Communist Party virus, whether that was an accident, which is what I believe that they took advantage of, or whether it was planned, as some conspiracy theorists believe. I don't see the proof of that. I can't exclude it, but I don't see the proof of that. But in any event, what I see is a very planned effort to make sure that the rest of the world got socked harder, if not worse, than China. And you say, oh, what kind of country would cause millions of deaths? Huh? Think about it. If they do it to their own people, why wouldn't they do it to you? Losing a couple million people doesn't mean anything in the materialistic analysis of communism or of the Chinese government as it presently exists. It's not oh my goodness, nobody would do that. Yes, the Chinese communists would do that, and they did do that. And what was the reaction in the United States? Even the reaction to cutting down importation and flow from China in late January, early February of 2020, which saved maybe 1 million, 2 million lives. President Trump was attacked as a xenophobe, a racist. China was defended and the U.S. was attacked. And then when he said it was a Chinese virus or a Wuhan virus, China was defended, the U.S. was attacked by American companies, by American sports leagues that make a fortune in China, by almost the entire Democrat Party, which is somehow soft on China, and by Joe Biden, who's not only seems to be philosophically aligned with China, but whose family has made millions and millions of dollars from China. So you realize what they built over the years, the infiltration they've gotten, so that you can't, if you do something in the best interest of the United States, but it hurts China, these people defend China either because of their philosophical reasons or their business interests or their greed or their or their corruption. But in any event, that's where we are now. And China all of a sudden had to live through Reagan after having Obama, and particularly when it changed from Hillary to Kerry, the Chinese were enormously happy. They found Hillary Clinton much tougher on them than Kerry, and there's plenty of documentation for this. Kerry was like, might as well have one of our own working for us. They got everything they wanted, and they got everything they wanted from Biden. We kind of see some of the reasons for it now, but we knew that was happening then. We just ignored it. The press, which has this double standard in coverage, which can be so dangerous to us in our criminal justice system, is just as dangerous in dealing with world threats. We didn't really highlight that. So now we have the same Joe Biden in the White House who caved in on the islands and caved in on the tariffs. And as of a year or two ago, his family were business partners with the Chinese communists. And we've got him sitting in the White House with John Kerry, who was the softest Secretary of State on China we ever had. And he's the ambassador for climate change, which has a lot to do with China. So where are we going to go? What are the points we have to look at in order to keep the United States safe and in order to defeat China's goal of being the leader of the world by 2049? We have to be unified in that goal, the way we were unified in putting a man on the moon, the way we were unified in defeating the Nazis, the way we were unified ultimately in defeating the communists, and the way we were unified after September 11 and bin Laden came here with foreigners, people who were dedicated to destroying Americans, and killed us. This is not a matter of you can make more money or less money or somebody's exaggerating or I'm making this up. Just listen to the words of the leader of China, assume he's telling the truth, watch his actions, and you realize we have a very serious enemy that wants to displace us. And by displacing us, it's going to create a perilous world, a dangerous world, a totalitarian world for us and for the rest of the world. This is no small challenge. So what are the issues? And I'll mention just a few that we have to concentrate on. And then these are things we can look at for quite some time and see how they're going. First of all, we've got to continue our trade negotiations with them and be tough. Letting them put tariffs on our materials and we don't put it on ours not only hurts the balance of trade. We do get the benefit sometimes of lower prices. But here's what is the thing that makes the difference. We lose jobs. Those jobs move to China. And it's easy to say, oh, go learn how to use a computer, or what are you, a dummy? You can't do this or you can't do that. Not everybody is skilled in all different things. And when you've been brought up with this certain kind of skill, and it's something we can still do, why are we giving it to China? So we've got to be equal. That's free trade is fair trade. They have a 30% tariff on automobiles. We have none. It's not free trade. That's unfair trade in favor of a Chinese communist government that's helping to fund a country that wants to supplant us in 2049. Do you get it? And not you, them. You get it? You're giving them money. And much like when Obama gave Iran the cash, the $1 billion and so in cash, don't you realize half that money is going to be used to kill people? Some of them be Americans. So we got to be tough. Those are critical. These are not just economic decisions. These are political decisions, global political decisions that are very, very important. We're going to take a short break. I accomplished a lot in 2020, exposing the truth, establishing the relationship with you, working tirelessly for America. And I came to know the work and value of the people at American Hartford Gold. You see, you buy gold not only for what you know, but you buy gold for what you don't know. American Hartford Gold is the company you can trust when it comes to buying gold. They sell physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside of your IRA. In the precious metals industry, they are the highest rated firm in our country with an A+, from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. Give them a call and tell them Rudy sent you. And be sure to ask them what I bought. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. Folks, these are uncertain times. The one thing you can count on to protect what you have worked so hard for is physical gold and silver. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 833-GOLD-777. That's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Again, that's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Let's continue with our overview of China. We have to stem the growth of China's military power in the South China Sea. And there we have allies. There we have allies like Vietnam. We have allies like Japan, ultimately, and a number of other countries. They're not very happy with China. There's a lot of opportunity there if we want to take that side of it. And we want to spend time on that rather than just sucking up to China. We have to meaningfully stop the theft of Western, particularly American, intellectual property, American creativity. They're living off our creativity, our innovations, and they steal it from us. And then they put us again at great disadvantage, and we lose the jobs. We cannot separate human rights from our analysis of China. We can't have two separate tracks here, because if they are telling us the truth, which they are, they want to control the world, and they maintain that kind of human rights record, then who's controlling the world? A dictator. We have got to force the rest of the world to get them off human rights commissions, to stop pretending, and to start putting emphasis on the millions of people they have in prison, on the total lack of free speech, on the fact that freedom of religion doesn't exist, particularly when they want to name the bishops of the Catholic Church. The Chinese communist government, who are atheists, want to name the bishops of the Catholic Church. So there's no freedom of speech, there's no freedom of religion, there's not a fair election. This isn't anything close to a democracy. They want to rule the world. That's why they have to be challenged early and often. And they promote a false picture of a very constructive China, and we have to combat that at every stage that we meet up with it. The Wuhan Chinese CCP virus being the most important one, because they are trying to create the big lie that China isn't responsible for it. Well, it is clear beyond any doubt that China is responsible for it. It's also clear beyond any doubt that China has corrupted a great deal of our Western society in order to lie for them and to support their propaganda. I mean, Biden, I don't know if he did this or he said he was going to ban calling it the China virus. How can a president even think he can ban a word? What? I can't think of an American that would ever think that a president could ban a word, and then we have a First Amendment, we have a free speech. But just think of how much China has gotten into their heads. Well, they got to get China out of their heads. They have to listen to, this was a quote just on May 20th, 2020 by a writer for Bloomberg called Hal Brands. Can we pay the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, the compliment that it means what it says and knows what it wants? That may be the key to understanding Beijing's strategic ambitions in the coming decades. Can we pay the Chinese Communist Party the compliment that it means what it says and knows what it wants? That may be the key to understanding Beijing's strategic ambitions in the coming decades. That was Hal Brands in Bloomberg, May 20th, 2020. I'd put that up on my wall if I were Biden or Tony Blinken or any of the people responsible for China. And I take a look at, again, I take a look at the proceedings of the 19th Party Congress in October of 2017, when Xi promised that by 2049, they were going to become a global leader in terms of national strength and international influence, in which China's national rejuvenation could be fully realized. So what do we have to do? One, we've got to match their military buildup and exceed it. You don't win without being stronger. I think the Second World War proved that. The Cold War proved that. Military might is critical when you're dealing with a homicidal, materialistic, communist enemy. We have to be stronger. We've got to be able to fight a two-ocean war and win it. And we cannot expend our resources or take our resources from the military and expect that we're going to be the predominant country in the world, guiding the morality of the world after the middle of the century. So military investment is critical to preserving human rights for the world, because that's what we're doing. China takes over the world. You might as well forget human rights for the whole world. That's what you're fighting for. Trade, tough. They got to find themselves a Peter Navarro. What a patriot. What a change. What a change in the Chinese economy. You do not give in to a bully. Please read my book on leadership, Stand Up to Bullies. Equal treatment for Americans. China's no longer an undeveloped country. They say they're not underdeveloped anymore. So don't treat them as if they're underdeveloped. 3, on climate change. None of this Paris Accord stuff where we impose hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars of costs on ourselves, and we don't on them, and we end up with the same damaging stuff going up into the environment. If it does the damage they say it does, what's the difference if it comes from China or the United States? Except they're making the profit and we're losing money. You kind of call that stupid, actually. And you get an idea of how they out-negotiate us. And 4, hold China accountable for the CCP virus. They are. It came from China. Exactly how? Was it deliberate? Don't think so. Was it accidental and then they took advantage of it? Yes. And you think the World Health Organization is going to persuade me differently? China owns the World Health Organization. And once again, an administration that seems to be more favorable to China than the U.S. joined the World Health Organization on the first or second day. You look at those actions taken the first couple of days. I mean, I knew America wasn't going to be first. Biden told us that. I didn't realize that China was going to become first. And then we've got to challenge their expansion in the South China Seas, using natural allies, including Japan, to help us, and even European allies who want free shipping in that area. And 6, we have got to use CFIUS strictly. CFIUS is the provision that says if foreign countries want to do business in the United States, particularly those that are hostile to the United States, it has to be approved by a board consisting of the Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Commerce. It's the one in which we've had certain allegations of corruption with regard to Russia paying off the Clinton people. And we got to straighten that one out. And we got to get China's grip on our business out. And also, we should pass a law. Members of our government should not be allowed to do business with China. And their families should not be allowed to do business with China. It should be illegal for a president, a vice president, a senator, a congressman to do business with China. And it should be illegal for the wife, the son, the daughter, anybody within the first degree of sanguinity. Maybe even the second, we can debate that, but certainly the first. No business with China. Because if you read about China, you realize that's the way they corrupt. They pay off the relatives, not the principal. It's an ancient Chinese tradition. It even has a name that I forget. So let's get their tentacles out of our gut. You know, it's in the gut of our government. It's in the gut of our businesses. It's in the gut of our media networks. It's in the gut of some of our sports organizations. We got to cut it out. We got to cut it out for the sake of the United States. And we have to cut it out for the sake of the world, because we cannot have a dictatorship ruling the world. Otherwise, the world becomes a dictatorship. And all these rights that this great country has developed over the centuries will be for naught. So that's a preface to China. We will be spending a lot of time on China. Very, very worthwhile paying attention to it, because we can't let this administration go off course. I'll give you one piece of good news. Although Biden doesn't seem to recognize it, although Kerry doesn't seem to recognize it, the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, has made statements that he is going to pursue a lot of the Trump policies with regard to China. So let's see how that dynamic emerges. It may not be all bad. It may not be all good. It may be very bad, or it may be very good. But let's hold them to account. The media is not. So you're going to need a different perspective on China, because China owns the perspective that you get from the big media and big tech. They own it. They certainly own big tech. So you'll never get a true read on China. So you've got to come to sources like me and evaluate what we're going to be telling you about China, because I'm going to tell you the truth about China. I'm going to tell you what Xi Jinping said and what Xi Jinping is doing. And when the Biden administration does good things that help the United States, I'm going to say it, like Blinken, who has said some very good things. Or when they do very bad things, like the actions that Biden took in his executive orders in which he put China first, I'll be the first one to point those out. But those are things that you have to know, so we don't let this go too far. This is a fight not just for the United States. It's a fight for the world and the kind of world we live in. So pay attention, and thank you very much, and we'll be back in a few days.